Hey there, it's Gary Parrish here to play 5 questions on the Tigers with CJ Hurt. CJ once again is in charge of the questions. I once again am in charge of the answers. So let's get into it with question number 1.
Question number 1, GP. What stood out to you in that Memphis win over Cincinnati this weekend?
It was a solid performance in a very important game. You know, the Tigers led by 11 at the half and then never didn't lead in the second half. I know it got a little closer at the end than anybody, most notably Penny Hardaway, wanted it to get, but they controlled that game for the overwhelming majority of it. Added another quadrant 2 victory. Avoided what would have been a troublesome quadrant 2 loss. You know, keep in mind, as you know, the Tigers just lost their third leading scorer, Keonte Kennedy, for the season with a fractured hand. And that's why the scoring burden is going to be heavier on Kendric Davis and DeAndre Williams going forward. In the win over Cincinnati, Kendric Davis got 22 points. DeAndre Williams got 21. Those guys combining in some form to get 40-plus might be a requisite for getting notable wins going forward. Like if this is a team that's going to play in the NCAA tournament and advance in the NCAA tournament, you probably need to look at that box score after every game and see Kendric Davis and DeAndre Williams combining for at least 40. They showed up against Cincinnati. They did it against Cincinnati. That was a nice win inside FedEx Forum.
Question 2, was it appropriate for some fans to boo former Tiger Landers Nolley?
I don't think so. Listen, fans are going to be what they are, and that's not unique to Memphis. That's true at Kansas, Kentucky, Alabama, wherever. Fans tend to act the ways that they act, and there's not much difference between one fan base and the next. And I learned a while ago that you telling them how they should be isn't really going to be an effective approach. But I personally, I would not boo Landers Nolley if I were a Memphis fan. The context here matters. By all accounts, that guy didn't want to leave Memphis. He was told, you don't have a place at Memphis anymore. And when those are the circumstances surrounding somebody's exit, I don't know why you're booing them. Like, Landers Nolley was a part of some good teams at the University of Memphis. He helped them make the NCAA tournament for the first time under Penny Hardaway, win a game in the NCAA tournament for the first time under Penny Hardaway. It reminded me a little bit of a few years ago when KJ Lawson came back to play at FedEx Forum as an opponent, and he was also booed. And if I remember correctly, that one was a little more intense than this one. And people pointed to, hey, you left us and you said some maybe not great things on the way out about the guy who was our coach at the time, Tubby Smith. But again, the context there mattered. If I were KJ Lawson's father, I would not have wanted him saying what he said about Tubby Smith on video, regardless of how Tubby Smith treated me or the university treated me. But I understood that was rooted in KJ Lawson had just watched his father get demoted by the new coach that took over. He had watched his father sort of be pushed to the side and hey, you're not really a part of our coaching staff the way the university promised you that you would be. So I understood Diedrich and KJ being upset, and I didn't understand so much why folks booed when they came back. To Penny Hardaway's credit, he spoke out against that at the time and said that's I'm not down with that, booing KJ Lawson, and I'm sure he felt the same way about the Landers Nolley situation.
Question number 3. Are the Tigers now safely in the NCAA tournament field?
Yes. Not safe forever, no matter what, but safely in the field right now. Just some numbers for you there. 2-3 in quadrant 1, 7-3 in quadrant 2, 7-1 in quadrant 3, 6-0 in quadrant 4. So the important things to pull out there: 9-6 in the first 2 quadrants, with one additional loss falling in quadrant 3. That's the home loss to Tulane. For the sake of context, Oklahoma State is one of those teams right now from a power conference that is right on the bubble, depending on what bracket you look at, maybe just on the right side, maybe just on the wrong side, but they're right there. Oklahoma State's 5-10 in quadrant 1, 3-2 in quadrant 2, 3-1 in quadrant 3, 5-0 in quadrant 4. So 8-12 in the first 2 quadrants, with the quadrant 3 loss to Southern Illinois, which is a worse quadrant 3 loss than the Memphis loss to Tulane. So they're 8-12, 4 games below 500 in the first 2 quadrants with a quadrant 3 loss. Again, Memphis is 9-6, 3 games above 500 in the first two quadrants with a quadrant 3 loss. It's a pretty significant gap between those bodies of work. Memphis has a better winning percentage in quadrant 1. Memphis is 3 games above 500 in the first two quadrants as opposed to 4 games below 500 in the first two quadrants. The Tigers are in the 20s in some computers, in the 30s in most computers. Like I said, they're not safe no matter what happens going forward. That's what you would call a lock for the NCAA tournament. They're not that yet, but they are safe right now. And barring them really getting out of character over the next 2 weeks, I think you can reasonably assume they're going to be in the NCAA tournament.
So what's on tap for the Tigers this week, final week of the regular season?
2 more games in the regular season. Obviously, an interesting one on Thursday at SMU. It's a quadrant 3 games, so it won't help your resume if you win it. It'll only hurt if you lose it, but it's a big game for Kendric Davis. He's obviously the reigning AAC Player of the Year. He earned that award while playing for the Mustangs. On the note of should Landers Nolley have been booed at Memphis, it'll be interesting to see how SMU fans greet Kendric Davis on Thursday. And then after that, massive game inside FedEx Forum on Sunday on CBS. The top-ranked Houston Cougars will be in downtown Memphis. That's, needless to say, a quadrant 1 opportunity. So it's a big week. I would actually argue you need to not lose at SMU, or at least I could argue. Yeah, I would. You'd be better off not losing at SMU than you would be beating Houston. But obviously, a 2-0 week would be a terrific way to close the regular season.
All right, Gary, we'll get you out of here on this one. Do the Tigers need to beat Houston to get an at-large bid in the NCAA tournament?
I don't think so. I believe there is a path to an at-large bid without a victory over Houston. Now, to be clear, we might get to a point, given what happens with Memphis between now and then and what happens around the country between now and then, where we're looking up at the AAC tournament. We go, yeah, they're probably going to need to beat Houston to feel safe that they're in the field without an automatic bid. But I don't think we're there right now. Like, let's just play this out, because I think you can play it out and create a path where Memphis doesn't beat Houston, but Memphis still makes the NCAA tournament. So right now, like I said, Memphis is 9-6 in the first two quadrants with 1 quadrant 3 loss. Let's say they win at SMU this week, and then lose at home to Houston this weekend. The win at SMU's quad 3 doesn't really help you, but the loss to Houston's quad 1 doesn't really hurt you. It's just a missed opportunity. Either way, you go in the AAC tournament, you're 9-7 in the first 2 quadrants, still 2 games above 500 in the first 2 quadrants with the AAC tournament in front of you, and only 1 loss outside of the first 2 quadrants. Your quarterfinal game probably doesn't help you. If you win, it only hurts you if you lose it. Probably not a quadrant 1 or quadrant 2 win. Semifinal game should be a quadrant 2 opportunity. Let's say you win that. So now you're 10-7 in the first 2 quadrants, heading into a championship game theoretically against Houston. Even if you lose that game, you still enter Selection Sunday based on the current numbers, 10-8 in the first 2 quadrants with only 1 additional loss. Simply put, 2 games above 500 in the first 2 quadrants with only 1 additional loss falling outside of those first 2 quadrants. That's probably going to get the job done. If the Tigers can beat Houston, they can probably afford to take another goofy loss somewhere. If they can't beat Houston, they might really have to beat everybody else not named Houston between now and Selection Sunday. But the idea that they must beat Houston or else, I don't buy that at all. At this point, probably it's good enough. Don't lose to anybody not named Houston between now and Selection Sunday, and I think the Tigers will play in the 2023 NCAA tournament.